Hey there, it's Janice, author from Lock Your Voice's Secrets to Singing and head vocal coach of Life Academy. Today, I'm going to talk to you about some of the habits to an unhealthy voice. So if you've been practicing this all this while, right, it's time to put an end to it, alright? Run away from these habits as far as you can. Because collectively, if you do this enough, every single day, it's going to cause some damage to your voice, and you will find that your voice will deteriorate over time. So avoid these habits at all costs. Now, the first habit to an unhealthy voice is throat clearing. Yes, when we do things like this, alright? So you'll find that this habit is quite common, a lot of people do it every single day without even thinking. Now, this throat clearing business is not good for your voice. It causes a lot of tension on your vocal cords, unnecessary tension. We're rubbing the vocal cords together, coming together like this, every single time we do it. And it's not necessary at all, because clearly a lot of people do it out of habit rather than because they need to. Now, what does it mean to do it out of habit? Well, sometimes we feel that tickling urge in the throat. The next time you feel that, try to resist the urge to want to clear your throat. Instead, try to swallow or maybe drink some water instead. Most of the time, it's not actually phlegm that's caught in our vocal cords. Most of the time, it's just a feeling that we need to clear the throat. And once we get that started, that, it drags us into this vicious cycle, of keep having to clear our throat over and over again. So remember, unless you're having phlegm or something, then, perhaps cough it out, but not, to the extent where you're like, feel like you're coughing blood or anything like that. But just cough it out once or twice if possible at all, but if not, drink some water and just let it take its time to get out. Alright, the second unhealthy habit that one singer or a speaker can possibly have is to whisper. Alright, so if you find yourself constantly whispering like this is really bad for your voice. Again, it's because when we whisper, it causes very unnecessary tension on the vocal cords. So, if you find yourself constantly stuck in an environment, whether in school or even at work, where you always have to whisper to somebody else to get your message across, this is really going to be bad for you, especially if you do it often enough. Because imagine putting all this unnecessary tension on your vocal cords, these little muscles in your voice box every single day. You can imagine how much tension will then lead to more inflammation on the vocal cords, which can also eventually lead to damage, like the forming of vocal nodules and such. And we don't want that. So instead of whispering the next time, try speaking quietly. And there is a difference. When we whisper, there's a lot of air coming out, and it sounds like this. Hi, my name is Janice. So this is whispering, which is not good. Compared to speaking softly, hi, my name is Janice. This is better. Alright, so this is not as airy as this one where we are whispering. So differentiate what you're doing, Are you whispering? Or are you speaking softly? And always choose to speak softly over whispering, especially when you are ill. If you're already not feeling well, like you feel like you're losing your voice, the worst thing you can do is to whisper. Alright? If you don't believe me, simply go and see an ENT specialist and they will tell you the same. The best thing to do when you are unwell, you feel like your voice is losing your voice already, the best thing to do is to grab a board and a marker or a pen and go around communicating with that board and that pen. Alright, do whatever it takes so that you can shut your voice down completely, rest your voice out completely, and that means to not use your voice at all, whether in speaking or in singing completely. If for a few days, they'll be even better. Okay, moving on to the third habit of an unhealthy voice, or to an unhealthy voice. Vocal abuse, alright? When it comes down to vocal abuse, there are many forms of which, can lead to that. And I would say most of the time, it could be vocal technique. And a lot of people think that when it comes to vocal technique, it's all about singing. But that's not the case. When it comes to vocal technique, it could be also the technique that you're using right now when you're speaking. Perhaps, for example, if you've been whispering, as a form of speaking, rather than projecting your voice properly using your vocal mask. When you compare these two habits together, you can see where they're going to take your voice to, right? So remember to always use better vocal technique in speaking. How do you know if you're using good vocal technique? It's simple. If you find that after using your voice for like, half a day, and you're already feeling like your voice is strained, or you're feeling really dry no matter how much water you've been drinking, that is a sign that perhaps the technique you're using right now is not very good at all. So you're probably going to have to change the way you speak and change the way you sing if singing is what you do. Now, besides technique, which can, lead to vocal abuse, there's also diet. Now, this one is a bit tricky because every individual is different. So you may find that for you, perhaps if you take a lot of spicy food, you get a lot of phlegm, or it could be dairy products, it could be chocolate, milk, right? Or it could be any other sort of foods. But only you will know exactly what it is that when you eat, it triggers some extra mucus being produced, whether in your nasal cavity or even in your vocal tract. So if you find that there are foods that causes such reaction, and of course, for most of us, it could be alcohol too, avoid overusing or over consuming all these things, especially if you've got a presentation coming up or you've got a performance coming up. You want to make sure your voice is in its complete form and not, disrupted by all this extra mucus production going on as a result from what you've consumed. Now, the third thing that can also lead to vocal abuse really is lack of sleep. Yes. So if you don't sleep enough, really, all I can say is this: sleep is the best way for the body to recover, and that also covers the vocal cords. When we sleep, the body does whatever it has to do to re-moisture those vocal cords again and get those cords into shape. And that explains why, right? Every time when we wake up in the morning, the first time, when we first get up, what happens? You find that, you've sometimes got a lot of mucus in your nasal tract, or you feel like you need to clear your throat and all that. Why? Because the nasal tract as well as the vocal tract, including your vocal cords and everything, they need to be moistured throughout the night, right? So that by morning, by the time you wake up, it's back to, its very healthy and moist form, which makes for good vocal phonation. So, in other words, having enough sleep is a healthier way, to get your voice on a healthy track rather than, not sleeping enough. So, what is sleeping enough? Well, some people it's 6 hours, some people 7, some people 8. I wouldn't say 10 hours is ideal, alright? That's a bit abnormal. But who knows? Maybe if you sleep 5 hours, that could possibly be enough too. But I would say over a period of time, try to get as much sleep, as sufficient sleep as possible, especially if you've got a performance, a presentation coming up. So I hope you'll keep these 3 things in mind the next time you use your voice, because if you want your voice to be at its full form, to perform at its 100% best, you've got to keep it healthy, and there's no better person to do it than you. Now, for more vocal tips, just go onto my website, unlockyourvoice.com.my, or follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/Janice Yap FB. I'll see you there.